Welcome to the very first episode of What Lies Ahead, a podcast where we explore everything related to the hardcore scene and community. I'm your host, Chris Ruffini, and I'm thrilled to kick things off with my first episode with a special guest. Shutdown has been an influential New York hardcore band that released 2 LPs on Victory Records in the late 90s to early 2000s. They've also toured the world and have a new EP that was just released on Equal Vision Records called By Your Side. And with all that, I've honestly probably remained the most humble, down-to-earth, genuine guys in the scene. I'm really fortunate to welcome Mark Scondotto of Shutdown here. Mark, great to have you on. How's it going, man?
Hey, what's up, Chris, man? Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's really honored to be your first guest, and props for doing this podcast, man. I love this. I love talking about this community and the music we love, and yeah, man, good to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. So I guess what we'll start off with, and I do want to get into obviously the EP, which kills, by the way.
Thank you.
But I do want to get into that. But start with you, really. I'll talk a little bit about you in terms of when you were younger. What's your first recollection of liking music, getting into music, and then how that built from your first heavy album you remember, and then which led into hardcore. Now, obviously, you have older brothers that were prominent in the metal and hardcore community, so you had music around you all the time. But talk a little bit about that when you were younger.
Yeah, man, definitely. Well, a lot of people know I grew up in a house there were 7 people total. So my parents had 5 boys, and I was the youngest. And we lived in Brooklyn, in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, and we rented. If you've ever seen those 3-family houses in Brooklyn, the brick houses, we basically rented the top 2 floors. And the very top floor was more like an attic converted into a top floor, and that's where we all slept. So you had 4 of us in this one really like very, very small space. Like I told people, we used to call it like the barracks because it was kind of like an army barracks, but we didn't have bunks, so we were all just next to each other. My brother John's bed was directly perpendicular behind me, and then my brother Mike's bed was just to the left of me, where like I could reach out my arm and touch his feet. Like we were a close group. But and Kevin slept next to Mike in the bed like 2 feet away. So this is how we slept growing up. We woke up and the 4 of us were in this room, and there were hardcore posters, metal posters, as young as I can remember on my brother's wall, even glam rock posters, because my brother Kevin at the time, I was born in 1979, so we're talking 80s now. And in the 80s, my brother Kevin went through a really big phase with, Poison and Cinderella and Warrant, and he was really big into Rat. And I remember the Bullet Boys and Saigon Kick and all these different bands like that just come to my mind when I think of Kevin, right? Tesla and all these bands. And Mike was more into, before he found hardcore, more into like alternative music. Mike really was into Jane's Addiction. And I remember Mike's having Metallica posters on the wall, and Justice for All, that poster was on the wall. And I remember if I looked to my left, Mike's bed was right there. So all these things were like visually surrounding me as a child and probably shaping my future and my interest in music, because everything I saw around me started to gravitate to my life. Right behind me was my brother John's bed, and John's wall was unique. I remember from the start because John had 2 really big interests in music. He really liked English music. He was into the Smiths. He was very into Morrissey. He was into like that whole wave of music, genre of music. And then he was really into, Underdog and Youth of Today and Side by Side and the Revelation stuff and Killing Time. And I remember a Raw Deal poster on my brother John's wall, Raw Deal, aka Killing Time. And I remember Underdog, and then I remember the New York Hardcore The Way It Is poster, which was that compilation and that came out at that time. And I tell people all the time, I've said this before, but my brothers would go to shows at that time. Now I'm probably 7, 8 years old. It's 1988. And my brothers were now teenagers. They're 8 years older than me and 9 years older than me, and they're going to CBGB's matinees, right? And my parents are real reluctant to let them go. But because Mike and John are only barely 2 years apart, they were connected at the hip as teenagers. They were best friends. They went to all the shows together. They were very close. So Mike and John were going to all these shows, and I was just this little kid. When they left the room, when they left the house, my other 2 brothers were typically never home, and I would just like go through their stuff, just like a typical little brother, like trying to get in trouble, right? And I would go through their records, and I would wonder like why my brothers have all these 7 inches and vinyl and 12 inches. And I would look at the names of the bands, and I'd look at the covers of the albums. And I remember a couple that really stuck out to me at that time. Like the Youth of Today cover for Break Down the Walls, or Sick of It All, I think it was Just Look Around. And my brothers had like every hardcore record known to man at that time. Little did I know, like the treasure trove of hardcore collections
Mhm.
existed right in my house. But I think it kind of like I said, kind of started to kind of put that energy into my brain to want to like listen to the music. And then one day I never put the music on. I would just look at the art, right? And then one day I was like 9 maybe, and I saw a token entry record in my brother's collection, Jaybird, and it looked really cool. Like the artwork looked really cool. It's kind of like graffiti artwork, but it had skateboards on it. And at that time, I had just bought my first skateboard, and I was like, "Oh, this looks like something I'd like." I didn't even know how to put a record on a record player, Chris. I'm not even kidding you. And I put it on, and I scratched the shit out of that record because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I
I
started
was
listening
thinking, I'm
to
like,
it.
man, he's putting at 8, 9 years old. How old are you again? You said
I was 8, maybe.
8, 9.
Yeah,
Yeah,
8.
I'm thinking of I have my 10-year-old son. If he was, I don't even want him going near my vinyl. I can imagine
Dude,
you're doing it.
and now like I'm listening to Jaybird and I'm listening to opening riff and I'm just like, holy cow, this is really powerful. Like I didn't expect it at all. I didn't know what my brothers were listening to. I thought it was all like sounding like Metallica. That was my earliest vision of
Right.
music and heavy music. And that I didn't connect the dots that hardcore was its own genre of music, and Metallica was heavy metal. I didn't know anything at that time. So after I put that record down, I started going through other records. I remember the Suicidal Tendencies record right away, and I saw, I opened up the layout and I started reading the lyrics, and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy, institutionalized." Like I was
Oh,
like,
and that record.
"Whoa," and it was just like, and then I saw the line, "I saw your mommy and your mommy's dead," and I was like, "What the?" I'm like, and so I put that record on, and now that record really like gravitated to me. I started listening to that record, and I was like, "This is absolutely bonkers crazy," and I love it. Like there was like an energy to that record where it just
Right.
like spoke to you, and I started every day going through one more record and one more record. Finally, one day my brother came home, and I think he went to put on. I always tell people I think it was the Sick of It All record and Blood, Sweat, No Tears. That's what it was. It was Sick of It All, Blood, Sweat, No Tears. And my brother put the record on. It had to be like 1989, maybe, and maybe 90, whatever year that record came out. And my brother came home, and it was scratched, and it was like skipping. And I was like, my brother goes, "What the fuck? Like, how did this happen, man? Like, what's going on?" They had no idea that I even liked hardcore, that I was listening
No.
to it. I didn't know I liked hardcore. And I think just from there, like that's how it was born for me, right? And the story, the short version of that at the end is that once Mike found out that I did scratch his record, of course he got mad at me. Jumped on me and like a big brother did, and pummeled me a little bit, and John too, because I think I messed up one of his records. But they thought it was super cool, and I think a week later they started teaching me about hardcore music, and they started showing me music, and they were like, "Look, you can never touch these records ever, or we'll kill you. But tell us which ones you want to listen to, and we'll listen to you. We'll listen to them with you." And that's kind of how it started. Um, Went to my first show when I was around 12 or 13 with them. So it took a few years before my parents would let me actually go. But there was a good year or two where I was trying to like start to educate myself, so to speak. And it was easy, Chris, because it wasn't like I had to sit there and do anything. My brothers were playing this stuff all the time around me, right? Like I would hear Youth of Today, and my brother Mike had such a diverse taste in music that it would go from like Youth of Today to, Slayer to, I don't know, Sick of It All to Dag Nasty. My brother loved everything. So I got a really good, diverse taste of music at that time. And it was really just being a fly on the wall in my brother's room.
That's awesome. And it's that's something that's great. It's like great mentors for you, obviously, right? It's like you're
Definitely.
growing up, you're looking up to them. Obviously, they're older brothers, and they're introducing you to all this amazing music from glam rock, which I started with as well. From metal, and then it led to obviously hardcore and shows. So obviously, from there on, you were going to shows, you were getting into hardcore. How did Shutdown form? Because you guys are all from Brooklyn, and from my understanding, you guys are pretty much all original. It's pretty much original. I mean, it's the same crew of guys when
Yep.
I met you back in '96. But how did Shutdown form, and how did you start getting there playing shows?
So we went to high school together. Steve, Jimmy, and myself all went to Severian High School in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. The all four Indecision members went to that same high school. Um, Tom and Steve Bago and Pat Flynn from Indecision all graduated the year that I started. So they were already out of the school already. Jimmy was a senior. He had actually skipped a grade, but was only 2 years older than me. So when I was a freshman, Jimmy was a senior from Shutdown, and Steve was a junior when I started. So I was a freshman starting in high school. Justin Brannon was a sophomore, Justin Councilman Brannon from
Mhm.
Incision.
Yeah.
So I met Justin probably 2 weeks into high school in 1993, September of 1993. My brother Mike had known a kid that was going to the Crazy Country Club shows to see Confusion and Marauder and Patterns and all those bands. And his name was Nick Wobito. And Nick he wore Doc Martens. He was starting to embrace skinhead culture, but he had hair. But he was hanging out with some skinheads in the New York hardcore scene, and he was a junior at Severian High School. Very interesting dude. He was actually born in Denmark and moved here as a child. And when he turned 18, went back to Denmark and joined the Danish army. But he went to hardcore shows at a very early age, and I met him first. Mike knew him. My brother Mike was already in college, and he said, "Hey, Nick Wobito goes to your high school. I told him to find you and to take you under his wing." And he did. He found me 2 weeks into school, and he said, "Hey, let me introduce you to a couple other people here that like hardcore." And he walked me right up to Justin. And Justin was a sophomore in high school. Justin had a varsity straight edge jacket and bleached blonde, scrappy hair. And Justin was like, "Hey man, nice to meet you." And I was like, "Hey, I'm straight edge too." And he was like, "Awesome," And I was like, "I'm trying to start, a band with, other people, And Justin was like, "Oh, I'm in like 3 bands right now." I think he had a band called Mess Puppies, and then he was just starting, and he had another band called Farmer, and then he was just starting Indecision. And Tom had just graduated there, and like I said, a couple of the other guys had went there as well. So because the rest of Justin's band didn't really go to Severian anymore, like Justin was hanging out with us and me and Nick and everyone else. I think the same day or the next day, I met Jimmy and Steve. And Jimmy and Steve were also went to Severian. So there was like this small clique there. Severian is an all boys Catholic high school. Now I think it's co-ed, but back then it was all boys Catholic high school. And it was very much 85% Guido kids from Bensonhurst that went there. And like maybe 10% not, and then 5% were your outsiders. And I guess I was part of that 5%. I took an hour and a half bus ride from Sheepshead Bay to go there. I went there primarily to play on the, yeah, I went there on the primarily to play baseball because they had a really good baseball team, and I played travel baseball pretty much like my whole teenage years. So my dad wanted me to go there to play. It was like the top baseball team, and I tried out and I made the team as a freshman, but didn't work out. Because I found hardcore, and that was something that I really gravitated towards. I wasn't big enough to be. I knew I wasn't going to make the majors, and the way Severian was, it was you really killed yourself to just if you didn't really know somebody. It was very much a know somebody type of environment where I came in, I made the team really just by trying out and having a great tryout, but the rest of the team kind of knew each other already. So when I played that freshman year, I didn't play much. I was like a DH. I probably played 3-4 innings the whole season, but I put the work in. And at that time, I was embracing hardcore. I found Justin, and the first practice that we had actually was at a studio in Brooklyn. I'm trying to remember the name of the studio. It was actually a studio that the Typo Negative guys used to practice at, and it was in Marine Park.
That's still around, like something like that. Is that even still would be there?
The studio's not around, but man, I can't remember the name of the studio right now. I wish I could. But we used to practice there. So Justin said, "Look, I'll write some songs with you, but I can't be in the band. But yeah, man, let's write some like youth crew type songs." Because I told him I wanted to start a band that sounded like Judge and Youth of Today and Side by Side. Indecision was not doing that. So Justin was like, "Hell yeah, I love all hardcore. I'll come and hang out with you guys and do that." And then we went to that practice, and at that practice, we actually wrote the song United. And Justin came up with the riff for United. And we wrote that song. And then like 2 months later, we played the Fort Hamilton Battle of the Bands. We jumped on set at the end of Indecision set, and we played United. And Justin played, and I believe Jimmy played. And then Steve wasn't in the band yet, but he was about to be in the band. And, I knew Justin wasn't going to stay in the band, so we weren't really formed at that point, but we were calling ourselves Shutdown. And then Steve came right then and there, and I had been friends with Steve in high school, and we started practicing. So Steve and I developed basically the plan to form Shutdown with like 4 members. Jimmy was a part of the band, and then a guy that we went to high school with, the original bass player, his name was Anthony Vredos. If you remember, he played Long Island a couple of the PWAC shows. Anthony was, someone that kind of at that time was he was very much into his relationship with his girlfriend, and he loved hardcore, but it was like hard to get him to do what we wanted to do, or we just kind of wanted to drop everything and just play. So Anthony was there for like the first year and a half, and then when we went to go on tour with fast break in the summer of 1996, Anthony was just like, I can't do it at all. I can't really do it. I'm too, he couldn't commit to it. So Dion was already our friend. He was in the band Muddlehead from Brooklyn. He was part of what we called the Brooklyn Youth Crew.
Mhm.
He was already part of the crew. He wanted to do more than what Muddlehead was doing at the time. They weren't really touring, and Dion was like, I want to tour. So he just came to one practice and just fit in like a glove. I mean, it was like riding a bike for him, and we, the four of us, have been a core as a band since early 1996. But Shutdown's first show was at L'Amour's in December of 1994. That's why we say we're going on 30 years now.
Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing to have essentially the same band the whole entire time,
Yeah.
because
Oh, definitely.
like we've gone through, some drummers here and there. It happens, but it's amazing that you guys have that same crew and still releasing stuff to this day. So I remember going back when we met. I think we met either at the PWAC in '96 or was it some Medford
I
VFW?
feel like I always feel like we met at CB's for some reason, but
Maybe
I know
maybe
in
it
Long Island
was.
because you used to come to the matinees. You were
Yeah,
like a part of Long Island kids. Not every Long Island kid came to Sunday matinees. You used to come to Sunday matinees. Sean used to come to Sunday matinees. Anthony used to come.
Anthony
Little
Race.
Anthony used to come to Sunday matinees. Um, I mean, there was Anthony Race, of course, but then other
Oh,
Anthony.
Anthony, yes.
So
Yeah.
so
So
there was a
yeah,
Michelle and like so I was thinking about that and I always feel like I might have met you at a Sunday matinee, but of course we saw each
maybe it
other in Long
was
Island
CB's.
every weekend.
It's foggy, but I remember you guys getting your demo. I just remember that's when I first met you. We just were talking at like PWAC or one of those places. Could have been CB's. And I just remember the buzz of you guys. Like there was a buzz and like people were excited about you, this new band, young band. I was young too at the time, but like this young band. And you had that 5-song demo. Was it the side demo?
The side demo,
Yeah,
yep,
that was
I
it. Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, and I love that you re-recorded it on the EP a year ago. Like I thought that was awesome. So, but like that, I remember, and there was this buzz, and it just kept growing and growing. And I just remember, we would play together, but I also remember seeing you guys at Wetlands, and then remember Tramps with H2O,
Yeah.
and then you signed with Victory Records, which was amazing. And correct me if I'm wrong. Against all odds, you guys recorded most of the album in the studio, right?
Yep.
You
We
signed,
wrote
and then
most of
you
the
had a
album
lot
in the
to get in,
studio.
right?
Yeah, the progression of that was crazy. We signed to Victory December. We signed the contract December of 1997. So like it was a very, very fast few months for us, and let me explain why. September 11th, 1997, rabies died. October 18th, 1997, the weekend memorial shows were planned at CBGB's for rabies. So October 10th and 11th was the first, or October, I think it was the 11th. It was 2 Sundays in a row, two CBGB's matinees memorials for rabies family. We played the second one, which was with Sick of It All. Gorilla Biscuits did their first reunion. Bouncing Souls.
I was at that. It was a
Insane.
anymore
Somebody got
crowded.
paralyzed. Yeah,
That
it was a
place was
wild show. It was
yeah,
oversold like beyond
crazy
words.
work.
If you remember the
Mhm.
line like around the block, that it was just
I
crazy.
was lucky I
But
even got in that, but yeah, that was a
that
wild.
I that show's on YouTube, by the way, for anyone that wants to like go down the hardcore history hole, and you can look up that show on YouTube. Every band set is on YouTube on that show. It's bonkers show. But at that show, after the show, I had no idea Victory was there. I could have just assumed, but it wasn't something we talked about. Like we didn't care. Like the whole thing was for rabies. So after the show, we met this dude who came up to us. His name was John Regan, and he gave us his business card, and on it said Victory A&R. And I was like, I showed it to my brother Mike, and he's like, dude, that's A&R. That's the fucking people that sign bands for Victory. I didn't even know what A&R meant. I honestly had no idea. So my brother was like, definitely talk to that dude. And he winds up talking to us like in that little room in the back of CB's after we played. And he's like, listen, Ray talked about you guys all the time to Tony. And, I don't know, you guys probably don't know this, but he's been telling Tony for a year or so to sign you guys. And Tony basically, we're signing lots of bands, but maybe we didn't pay attention close enough. But he goes, I know what I just saw. And he goes, we want to talk to you guys. How old are you guys? Are you guys 18 or is everybody in the band of age? And he was like asking us like questions like that. And at that time, I believe I just turned 18. I was the youngest guy in the band. So my birthday is September 29th, 1979. So it's like I literally just turned 18. And he was like, I want to meet up with you guys tomorrow in the city and go over contracts. And we were like, what contracts? Holy shit. He's like, well, you know what? Let me call Tony or whatever. Long story short, it took about 2 months. Like things didn't happen overnight. We weren't like, where's the pen,
Mhm.
But um, we signed a contract. I remember it was December of 1997. I didn't know what to do at that time. Like I think I forget, someone in the hardcore scene, I want to say at the benefit, introduced me to Roger, and Roger said, "Don't sign anything. I'm gonna
Yeah.
hook you guys up with this hardcore lawyer, Dave Stein, and just let him look at it. Dave's one of us, and he'll make sure everything
Which is
is
a
in
great
order.
call, right?
Well,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
God we gave that contract to Dave Stein, because it turned out he asked us to sign like a 10 record contract.
Oh my God.
And he did that with a lot of bands. And then when you push back, it was kind of a negotiation. And Dave Stein kind of cut it down to 3. So it was 3 full lengths on Victory. And we were like, even that for us was like overwhelming. We had never even put out one yet, But that was like the negotiated, like from 10. We're like, okay, 3. Actually, I think it was 3 releases. So we did the 2 full lengths and the EP. And after that, we signed the contract in 97, in December of 97. We said, okay, cool. We're going to write the songs, and he's like, wait, write the songs. He's like, no, I'm sending you to the studio in 2 weeks. January 8th, you're going into the studio. It's
And
booked
Mark, how
till the
many
end of the,
songs, I apologize, how many songs did you have written at that point? Like ready to
like
go.
3, like 3.
And they wanted like
And by the way, 2 of them were already released. So we just knew that if we put a full length out, we wanted to put them on the full length. So Tony was like, don't worry about it. We've done this before. It's all going to come together in the studio. He's like, who do you guys want? We need to get you guys a producer. Who do you guys want? We're like, we didn't know anything, Chris. Like, I'll be honest. Like, we didn't have some like list. Well, yeah, get us A, B, or C, And he was like, how about Jimmy Gestapo? I heard you guys worked with him. And we did a comp for a Japanese label. And Jimmy produced every band on the comp. It was like a comp that he put out through a distributor in Japan. Excuse me. And Jimmy was so fun to work with. He loved that we were straight edge, and he was so cool with us, man. It was literally like Rabies Part 2 with Jimmy. Like you just felt like you've known him your whole life. So, and especially after Rabies died, I mean, it was like getting to know Jimmy was almost like continuing the legacy of Rabies, because they were best friends, and Jimmy know what we meant to Ray. So Jimmy came in and was the producer for that record, and he brought in like everybody from New York hardcore to help us with that. I met Craig Sitari there. Jimmy invited him to the studio and said, come meet these kids, help these kids write these hardcore songs, And we wrote We Won't Forget. The members of Warzone, Jay, Vinny, and Todd, came to the studio and wrote We Won't Forget with us in the studio, like sitting in a circle writing the song with us. Tom Sheehan came to the studio, pen and paper, and wrote lyrics with me for 2 songs, and then Tom's on Dysfunctional, if you remember, but that's not actually on the flight. But Tom came to the studio, wrote pen and paper. So it's like, we had everybody kind of helping us out. It did come together in the studio. I listen to it now, and I'm not crazy about the production, but we were young, and it's raw, and it has energy, and that's really all that matters,
Agreed. That's all that matters. Now, did you feel, or it sounds like, because it was moving so fast, that did you ever stop and be like, oh my God, kind of thing, and feel any pressure with it? Or it was just like, no, we have to get this done because we have a deadline in terms of getting this completed?
Yeah. I don't think we ever felt pressure. When you're young and you just don't think about
Yeah.
pressure. When you're older, it's like when you're older, all you think about is pressure. But when you're young, like you don't fucking think about it. Like it's crazy. Like we were under such a tight deadline. We had no idea like how we were going to pull this together, but somehow it came together. Jimmy was kind of like making sure it came together. We weren't going over budget. We did have a budget, which most hardcore bands didn't even have that at that time, right? So we were really lucky, but we weren't paying attention to numbers. We were just there doing what we loved, which was writing
Right.
songs, being together. We loved being around the New York hardcore people like Craig and like Jimmy, and like the Warzone guys. We absorbed all of it and just tried to use it as our own personal influences. So it was like, it's something that just came together naturally.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. And that album came out great. I remember when that came out. That was an exciting time for you guys, and then you were able to tour and do so many different things around the world, and it was awesome, And that's what I kind of want to get
Definitely.
into is your live show, because you guys, to me, I feel like have always been known for your energy that you have at live shows to this day. When we played with you guys, was it 2 years ago with Strife and Soldiers and at AMH, and same energy. I feel like same energy, just 20 years later, So talk to me a little bit about your live set and how you guys go about deciding what songs to play. Obviously, there's songs that you have to play because they're the songs that everyone gets into. But how do you decide what songs to play in the set in terms of setting it up? Now, festivals are different, where you might not be your own headline set that you have, but how do you go
Right.
about that? And what's your favorite song that you have in the set, and songs that you don't play but you wish you would?
Huh, that's a good question. I don't think anybody ever asked me that. But as far as like how to pick songs in our set and like our approach, Shutdown has always been a mix of old and new. Like it's you can read reviews of us when we were 18, and you can read reviews now. Like we are very much that like blend of influences. We don't sound exactly like one band. You can hear our influences. You can hear that we love Agnostic Front. You can hear that we love Youth Crew hardcore. You can hear that we love melodic hardcore. You can hear that we love heavy hardcore. But we always try to put it all in a fishbowl, a punch bowl, and just like create our own thing. That was Shutdown's thing. So like when we did a live set, Shutdown has different songs to me that bleed into sets. We have heavier songs and we have faster songs, and we have songs that are more like stage dive songs, and then we have songs that, you know, get people moving more. You know, so when we're putting a set list together, I think it's always important to. I'm a very big believer in crowd participation. I love that element of hardcore. The element of putting the mic out and having kids sing with you, to me, is the special part of hardcore. You know, you
Mhm.
can't go to a lot of concerts and do that. It was something that drew me to hardcore when I was a kid. So one of the funnest things for me live to do, whether we're playing a Warzone cover or whether we're playing Few and Far Between or whether we're playing, you know, Decide or Hope, like I love crowd participation. Like, so when we're putting a set list together, I try to put it in a way, or we try to put it in a way where the crowd is always engaged at some point. You know, even with these new songs, we played the new songs for the first time on Friday night, and we had to bleed them into the set into the way where like we're not really boring people. Like we're kind of like we're adding them to the mix so that the crowd is engaged. You know, so we always like to open with something that people know. We used to do the intro a lot. I think we're moving away from the intro. Not that we're never going to do it again, but we want to kind of be unique in the set. People have seen us. If you've seen us in the last 3, 4 years, we want people to see us this year and see something different. So we're moving away from that and more towards bleeding in some of the newer stuff. I think one of the songs I love to play most live is probably, I would say, We Won't Forget,
Mhm.
because We Won't Forget, it just, I don't know, man, it gives me the feels every time I play it, to this day, because it's about rabies and the way it
Right.
was written and just the way it breaks down at the end with the young and old, just still, yet still the same. Eternal youth, we share the flame. Like whenever that end part comes on, and then that part that Craig helps us sing, that Dion sings live, that song really moves me every time we do it. And it's always a song that, whether there's 10 kids, 20 kids, 50 kids, that's usually one of the songs that people participate most in with Shutdown. Few and Far Between is probably my other favorite, because that song, it was a dream of mine to get Freddie to do a song with us. It was literally like, it's this, like, I am just,
You put
Madball
it
is one of my favorite
perfectly in
hardcore
that song.
bands. I've
Perfectly.
always said it. Like, I've
Yeah. I
always
mean,
said, like,
perfectly.
Set It Off was one of my first hardcore records. At, you know, we talk about when I was a freshman in high school. The first record that I physically went out and bought was Set
Set
It
it
Off.
off. That's a
So that
classic.
was my first hardcore record, was Set It Off, that I didn't steal from my brothers, that I went out and bought. Even though Mike was a college intern for a radio station and got it for free from Roadrunner. Um, but so Few and Far Between and We Won't Forget, probably. And now these newer songs, man, which we'll get into, but I really love them all. Like playing all these new songs really like affect me deeply. You know, we never played this What Are You Thinking before, obviously, until Friday night. But you know, Dion and started crying on stage. Like it was the most beautiful thing,
Personal
because he
lyrics,
didn't
man.
first he never played it live, and his songs about his son, and you know, then I couldn't help it, like I started tearing up, and it was just like, it was such an emotional moment on stage, that it was like, that is literally the beautiful part about music, no matter what the genre is. Like that was such an organic thing that happened. So I would say that song's probably going to be my new favorite. The one that I least like to play, just to answer your question, which I never answered this before, there's a couple, and I think it's more than, not that I don't like to play them, but they're really hard to do vocally, without, you know, trying to miss a line here and there. Like Within Our Reach is a good song, but it's so hard to do vocally, because there are no breaks in that song lyrically. Like it's just ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da. It's like one
Yeah.
after the other, you know, and it's really tough. Um, the Judged is another song. It's not necessarily it's not that I don't like it, but sometimes like when we're playing it in the set, it just kind of is one of those songs that I always tell the guys, it burns me out a little, you know?
Uh-huh.
Um, so
That's a
it
good
just,
one, though.
but I
I like
really
it.
love all the songs. Yeah. And I love playing everything. It's like, it's funny how me, and if you ask the other three guys, we'll have completely different opinions on some of the older songs, but we're starting to play songs that we never really played a lot a few years ago. Like we're playing What's to Come now, which is the first song in Against All Odds, which we really haven't played in the last like 5, 10 years.
Yeah.
And we're playing, you know, some older songs too that we never bled into the set. So we're trying to do something different this year with our live set that people haven't seen with us in a long time.
That's great. And that's cool. And it keeps it fun. Do you guys ever, I just thought of this. Do you ever look at what people are streaming and like, people like that one? Or you just go, it sounds like you go more based on feel, right?
I definitely look because about 2 years ago, I'm not gonna lie, 2 years ago, somebody said, "Dude, do you have Spotify for artists?" And I said, "No, what's that?" I literally like I was so late to the game on this, Chris, and it was right before we went to Europe, and I was like, it was 2023, and I'm like, Spotify for artists, and they're like, how do you not have Spotify for artists, dude?
Yeah.
So I never did. I never like I don't judge any sets by like shit I see on Spotify. We still don't do it that way, but ever since I got that app, it blows my damn mind. Like the songs that are popular on there, I'm like, what? Like I can't believe it. Like, like actually within our reach is a top 5 song on there. And I'm like, holy shit, like we've never even played that song live. Maybe a handful of times. Um, it's funny to watch that app and just see like where people are streaming your music, how many people I could go on there
I
right
agree.
now and it could tell me like how many people are listening to the new EP, how many people are listening to Few and Far Between. It's super cool like that. So I would say the last 2 years I've been more engaged in that stuff, but our set lists are very pure in the sense where we've talked them through. We don't look at numbers like that. We just kind of go off what we love
Yeah.
playing.
Feel, right? Like you did back in the day,
Yeah,
and
bro. Feel. It has to be
that's
that way with hardcore. Once you start planning it and it gets too rehearsed, like too premeditated, it doesn't feel hardcore anymore.
right. And you lose the fun out of it. At least that's like what
For
I think,
sure.
at least, and you have a nice catalog now to choose from. You have a bunch of different EPs and full lengths, and obviously this EP. So you have a
Yeah.
nice catalog to choose from. So before I get into the Equal Vision Records, how that came about, and I want to get into the new EP, would be remiss not to bring up. We lost someone in the hardcore scene who I wasn't really, I knew of him, wasn't as close with him, but I know you were, and a lot of other people that we know were very close with Rich Hall. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about him.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, rest in peace to Rich. It's been a rough few days for people in the New York hardcore community, not just the New York hardcore community, I should just say the worldwide music community, because Rich touched so many people. I said this to you before we started the podcast, but I would say at least 5 of my friends, we cried on the phone this week, and actually I have somebody I have to call later that I didn't speak to last night that we were trying to talk. And I think the message in Rich's passing that's really shook all of us in our 40s that love this music is just that, you got to live for today and anything can happen at any given moment. Rich wasn't sick. Rich didn't have any addiction. Rich didn't have any personal issues. He was a great father. He was a great husband. He put on some of the most memorable shows in New York hardcore in the last 25 years. My personal memories of Rich were meeting him as a teenager. We were both teenagers. We were part of that CBGB Sunday matinee crew. Rich worked with Tyler King. Tyler King had king size bookings back then, and Rich was very much Tyler's junior at the time, and Tyler was very much showing him the ropes. And I remember that transition for Rich. I remember seeing Rich every single Sunday. Hugging Rich every time I see him. I was, giving him. He used to give me this big teddy bear hug and basically pick me up, and he just had that warm feeling about him, man. And it's just when you see a guy like that go suddenly, just out of the blue. I mean, he was posting the day before on social media about his son's birthday. His son's 7th birthday was on that day, and he passed
Ugh,
away that night. I mean, just heartbreaking stuff, man. And
it is.
I love him. I know he's in a better place now. My heart really breaks for his family, um, his wife, Carrie, and his son Cillian. It's just the whole situation is just really sad, and I think the message that we can all take positive out of this is just love your friends, hug your family. You never really truly know when somebody's time is, and you really don't want to regret or feel like you missed out on telling them that. And I think Rich did a really good job at letting all his friends know that he loved them very much. I will tell you a personal story with Rich. 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago in 2012, before I'm remarried, and I have my beautiful wife now for 10 years, 11 years. And I really was at a really pivotal point in my life. I was going through a lot of bad things were happening. I was going through a really nasty divorce. I was, you know, really hitting rock bottom. I was, early 30s, and not knowing where my life was headed. I was very, very depressed. I was dealing with a lot of personal health issues, personal, mental health issues. My brothers wanted to help me, but never truly could connect with me the way certain friends could connect with me, because again, there's that 8-year gap, right?
Right.
So, a couple of people reached out to me. I don't know if my brother Mike put word out to them, or maybe my brother put something on Facebook and said, "Hey, if you're friends with my brother Mark, just send him some love on Facebook." Something like just something random like that, nothing too telling. And Rich called me. Rich sent me a private message. I had to go back and look because I don't delete anything. And it was like it was really, I cried, man, because it was like he was like one of the first people to message me, and he was like, "Call me right now. I need to talk to you right now." Like trying to like talk me off the ledge. And that was the type of person he was. Rich was a stand-up guy. I loved watching him meet his wife and have his kid and just become this amazing father and just live every day in such a positive way. He was an amazingly talented artist, and just so many friends are affected by this, man. This is a really deep, hurtful one that just really messes people up. And my only hope is just that, his son and his wife are okay. I'm not really, we'll all be okay. We'll get through this, but I really pray for his family, and just a tragic loss for our community. Tragic.
Yeah, yeah, and you just hear like, look, I said I didn't know him well, but I know a lot of obviously you and a lot of people that like that knew him very well and how he impacted them, and you hear about his character and integrity, and I'm with you, man. It's just it's the prayers to his wife and his son, and to get them through this.
Definitely.
So that's the
Definitely.
most important piece, man. But I guess moving on a little, let's talk the new EP. The new EP. But first, quickly, just how did Equal Vision come about?
Equal Vision was Bill Scoville from One King Down. Bill's a bass player for One King Down.
Mhm.
He's worked at Equal Vision for 30 years. Bill lives in Albany. Equal Vision's based in Albany. Bill has worked at that label from the infancy of the label. He is the head web designer for them and coordinator for all graphics. But really, Bill is just really at the top of that label. He helps bands left and right. One King Down and Shutdown have a long history together. We've toured the United States together. We used to have the same booking agent. We just really were close when we were young. We maintained the friendship with them for many years. And then in pandemic, right around 2020, um, Steve from Shutdown reached out to Bill and let him know that we wanted to write music and would Equal Vision be interested. And Bill, without blinking, said we would absolutely be interested in working with you guys. We wanted to reissue Against All Odds for a 25-year anniversary, so that would have been 2023. And Victory had sold the rights to Orchard Music, which is Universal. So they basically sold the back catalog. Every release that Victory put out essentially was sold to Universal under Orchard Music. So you weren't able to obtain those recordings. Of course, the artists own the songs, but we tried to get permission from Orchard Music to re-release the 25-year anniversary for Still Against All Odds, and we actually got a legal notice back that we were not allowed to do that. So
No,
once we did that, we came up with a plan with Bill, and we said, you know what? Why don't we just go in the studio and re-record the songs that we still play, and kind of put out a new and improved version, a fresh, updated version, if you will, especially given the story I just told you about when we first recorded those songs, where we literally wrote them on the spot. So
right,
we were like,
right.
let's go in the studio now, and Bill loved the idea. And Bill's like, yeah. Jerry Farley was a guy that, again, Brooklyn Youth Crew member from going to shows, and Jerry became a producer. That was his career. He did the last few Sick of It All records. He's worked with Lamb of God. He's worked with Method Man. Jerry has a really, really strong track record with production and mixing and engineering records. And Jerry, being a best friend of Shutdown since childhood, was like, I want to do this with you guys. Like, we can do this at my studio. Jerry works at Nova Studio. Nova Studio is actually Steven Seagal's old mansion in Staten Island.
Oh, for real?
Um,
That's funny.
yeah. And a gentleman bought that, and he had a studio in it, and then they kind of revamped the whole place, and that's called Nova Studio. It's in Staten Island, and that's where the guys, recorded both EPs. And I did the vocals in Jerry's other studio, which is in his parents' house in Diker Heights on the third floor. And
Okay.
Jerry has a vocal booth. He has an engineering studio there. He has a mixing board, and I go into a closet that has, that is soundproofed, and Jerry has all these old, beautiful, like, collectibles in there, like Ultimate Warrior dolls and Marauder demos and all kind of treasure trove things.
Right.
And I do the vocals in there, and I came up 3 or 4 times to do that. Equal Vision's been a pleasure to work with. Bill is, again, someone that we have that 30-year friendship with. So We knew we were in good hands. Once we met the rest of the team at Equal Vision, we were really psyched because they were really into the idea of putting this out. And Dan, who runs Equal Vision now, Steve Reddy is still the owner of Equal Vision. Dan is the kind of, I guess you could call him the president of Equal Vision. And we spoke with him and Bill together on like a joint call with Steve. And we were like, here's what we want to do. We want to put this out. Then we want to put new songs out, preferably maybe on the same release or separate releases. Here's our ideas. And we kind of laid it all out. And Dan was like, I fucking love it. I'm down. Let's do it. Like, boom, done, you know? At that time, like no contract, just everybody in agreement and just like, hey, let's get this done. And that's literally how it came together.
Simple, right?
Yeah. In
Yeah.
2023, Bill, we were like, I said to Bill, I'm like, we need to go to Europe together. And of course, like, if you used to tour Europe, like you just want to go back, you know, and we had such good times in Europe. So Bill and I put a tour together for Europe. We contacted Martine from No Turning Back, and we decided to turn it into like this like 3-band kind of 90s hardcore tour. No Turning Back is really just like us and One King Down from the same time frame, and they're from Holland, and I love those guys. And the three of us toured Europe for a few weeks together in the summer of 2023. And during that time is why I tell you we were writing some of these songs for the new EP. We were finishing them. We were on the bus together. We had a bus where the 3 bands plus a band from France called Worst Out. The 4 bands were on a bus. So it was 22 guys on one double-decker bus.
Uh-huh.
And at night, when everybody went to bed, Dion and Steve would tap me, and I'd be in my bunk, and they'd be like, "Wake up, come on!" And I'm not even kidding. We had a pen, paper, and songs on like Dion's phone, and Dion played riffs in his garage, and he'd be like, "All right, here's the riff. Here's what I was thinking we could do with this song." Dion always laid the foundation, and then I would kind of tweak it,
Okay.
And that's kind of how it came together with a lot of these new songs, which is really cool.
That's cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah, because that was my next thing. I was like, because you're in Florida, they're up north, obviously. So you just had to take advantage of how you did it. But it's easy in terms of writing. Like with us, we were writing when we were writing the new stuff, and Anthony's in Jersey and stuff like that. We did a lot of stuff through actually Zooms and talking, and then when we would rehearse, we
Yeah,
would put it together. It's just
same.
taking, just things you would never do back in the '90s, obviously. But
No, at all. And I'll tell you, like Dion, during the pandemic, he's a school teacher, and they were the first to get held back from work, right? And he
yeah,
lives in New Jersey, and he's in Old Bridge, and he has his garage, and his garage is kind of like his man cave. He has his bass rig in there, and he has all the shutdown stuff, and he goes in there and he plays. He loves playing, so he would send us these riffs, and he'd be like, Dion's very influenced by bands like Ignite, bands like he loves Madball. He loves like a lot of the things you hear in Shutdown. And he would come up with these riffs, and he'd be like, check this out, check this out. And they were really, really good riffs, like riffs, like memorable riffs. We're like, damn, that would be cool. And Dion would literally voice talk into the phone. He'd be like, all right, I'm going to play this bridge. Then I'm going to do this. And then Steve, see if you could put something to that, and that's how it came together. And we would be on this group text. And I'm not even kidding. And Dion had all the ideas. Dion came with all the ideas. Um, Ideas for songs lyrically, ideas for riffs. And Steve is always somebody that will change some of those ideas, but use the base of it and just kind of put his own method on it, of the way Steve does. And Jimmy plays along, like he knows the song already. And then it was like I was like the last one to come to the table. But by the time I did come to the table, Dion had a vacation in Florida. Dion's family, his mother lives in Deerfield Beach, which is 10 minutes from my house.
oh,
And Dion's like, I want to get together with you and go over the songs. And we came to my house, and I met his kids, and they came to the house, and we sat in my living room, and we started going over the songs. And it was like really cool because I think that night we wrote like 3 of them.
that's great.
And lyrically, like we finished the lyrics for like 3 songs.
That's great.
And it just, that's how it came together, dude. It was a very, very organic experience in the sense that like there was no pressure, no time frame, no record label people telling you what they wanted it to sound like, no outside influences other than just the 4 of us 30 years together, with a vision of how we wanted this to sound.
And now talk about this, because I remember back in the day when we used to talk, and we'd be like, we have a new song, and like we'd be like, I can't wait to play a new song. Like you would just get excited to play it, even if no one knew it. You were just excited.
Right.
How did you feel writing new material again? How did that feel again in your 40s? Like think like how did that feel?
It felt crazy, man. Like
Mhm.
I'm this type of person, like I can't hear, like I don't know that I could fully embrace a song till I hear the finished product. Like that's
Mhm.
the way I am. So I wanted it to sound certain ways. Like I will tell you, there's songs that I had no idea they were going to come out the way they came out. Um, I would listen to stuff, and I fought the guys on a couple of songs musically because I said, I don't know if I like this. Oh, I don't know if I like that riff there. But they had been practicing and putting this all together. So it was like by the time I came with my opinion, it's like, dude, we got this down. Trust us. Please trust us with this. We
Right.
know what we want you to do with it. Try it out. And if you don't like it, then we'll go back to the drawing board. And so by the time I got to the studio, they kind of had this vision that Jerry had as well. And there were some visions that I have that were not like that. Ultimately, it worked out perfectly. But it's funny how that works out, where it's like you think so. I would have never thought the EP would have turned out the way it did, but it turned out for the better in the way it was supposed to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and I think, and to talk about the new EP, I think like we said, I said this to you before we got on. I even like text you this when we were like when it came, especially when By Your Side came out. I hear Shutdown. Obviously, it's you guys, but a Shutdown just progressed obviously because it's what 20 something years later. But I hear Dag Nasty, I hear H2O,
Definitely. Yep.
catchy, the production, the sound. Farley did a great job. You sound great. Your singing on it sounds
Thanks.
great. It doesn't sound like you're trying. It just sounds like a natural thing that you always did. And then you have songs like is this the end, which is heavy, but it's like a new version of heavy for you guys. That's like that.
Yeah, it's like thrashy a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a really good one. But I love By Your Side. I think that was a great first
Thanks.
song to kick off as like the first release for it. It's super catchy, like I said. But what are you thinking is really, to me, I think one of the best songs you guys ever wrote. I got to be honest with you. I think
I
lyrically,
definitely
I
agree.
think
I love that song.
musically, and the ending with the kids singing, uh, like almost, I didn't want to call it campfire, but like it's like with the acoustic guitar and everyone. It captures the essence of what you guys are trying to do with this album, with this EP, and I think it's incredible. And the fact that you got all your kids to do that is what a cool thing to do. So why don't you talk a little bit about that song? I know that's a lot of meaning for the band.
Thanks, man. Yeah, the feedback we've been getting from that song it's very moving and it's emotional for all of us. The families of all the members of the band have been moved by the song and the meaning behind the song, and the reaction that we've been getting online has been nothing short of a miracle. And I say that genuinely because just yesterday I got a very, very long message from the father of a child with autism, and the child had regressive autism, which is like the
Wow.
most difficult kind of autism to have, which basically means he starts out talking and then just naturally starts to lose all of his abilities to do so. And the father said, I have never, it was a beautiful message. I wish I could post it on here, but I don't want to put the guy on the spot. But like, it was a message that basically said, I never in a million years thought I would be listening to a hardcore band that I used to listen to for 30 years and listen to a song that connected to my heart because I truly feel the words to this song as a parent of a child with autism. And that to us was like, we said this from the start when we wrote that song. We're like, if we connect with one person that understands the concept of this song, because Dion's son was diagnosed with nonverbal autism at a very young age. My son, my oldest son, I have four children. He's 17, and he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. Only at the age of 8 did we get the diagnosis.
Wow.
And the song "What Are You Thinking" is a concept that Dion wrote for his son in dedication to his son Michael, where he wanted to go through the emotions and the feelings of a parent dealing with the acceptance of that diagnosis. And anyone that has a child with a disability will tell you that there's always a level of denial in the beginning. You don't really know what's wrong with your child. In my case, my son is extremely smart, and Dion's son as well. I can only speak from my personal experience with Carmelo, my oldest son. We didn't know, there was little signs, and we said, oh, maybe socially awkward, maybe. And we didn't really truly go to bring him to get the diagnosis till he was 7 or 8 years old. In Dion's case, it was a lot different. He wasn't talking from an early part of his childhood. He began to progress to the point today where he talks fully, which is beautiful. But Dion wanted to write a song talking about the challenges that he faced with that diagnosis. It's a very, very deep song. When obviously the words are self-explanatory, but talking about just accepting it, overcoming it, and then ultimately the end of the song, which is just bringing it together for the kid who has autism and the parent that deals with it in a way where the child says, in you we can depend, and the parent says, in me you can depend,
Mhm.
and it's really moving like that. Um, all of the kids in Shutdown have known each other since they were little. We're a big family in Shutdown. There's 11 children in total. We're all married. So there's, the four of us and our wives and 11 children. So you do the math, that's 19 people in our camp. Um, it's a big, big crew, and we know each other. We know the birthdays of our kids. Of all the kids, we have Christmas cards and all that stuff. We are a family. We are a very, very, close family. These songs were meant to involve our families and to kind of brave the diagnosis to the world in a way to see that other people out there know that they're not alone. That was Dion's idea. And I got to tell you, like, it's beautiful the way it's being received, because I think even the hardcore people, I said to the guys when we wrote this, of course the discussion came like, oh, the hardcore scene's gonna fucking reject us because they hear this fucking song. And then I said, you know what, guys, how could anybody cast a stone on a song written like this about this meaning and this topic and you know our children? It's something that's beyond hardcore. It's more, it's the, I think Jerry said this, it's like the deepest part of passion that you can truly feel for music, because you feel it in your bones and your soul. And
Agreed.
it's really cool, man. I'm really proud of that song. Yes, it's a very different song than anything Shutdown's ever done, but like you say, at the end of that song, to know that my kids are on it, the guys' kids are on it, and then Michael actually is the one that says, obviously at the end, where he's like, "I'm done, Dad. I'm all done." Really, really touching. I told you
Yeah.
before the podcast, we played it live the other night for the first time, and Dion broke down on stage. I mean, he couldn't. It was too emotional for him as a parent, and the crowd just, they really embraced it. It was a beautiful moment. At the end, because the kids weren't there, we basically a cappella at the end, and I didn't know how it would sound, Chris, and I was kind of terrified, and it
Yeah.
came out awesome. Like, it came out beautiful, and the crowd was loving it. And after the show, I had two parents in the crowd come up to me. One kid had ADHD, and the other kid had autism, and the parents gave us like these emotional hugs, and they were like, "Where can I find this song? It's awesome." And it's just, that's the meaning behind the song. Like, that's what we wanted to do with the song. We want to do something really special with it. We want to, whether it's, embracing it with autism foundations and bringing autism awareness to more parents. It's 1 in 4 parents right now probably has a kid with a disability, whether it's
Yeah.
ADHD,
Yes.
autism. That's the statistic, which is insane. So there's a lot of people that don't talk about it. Some parents are very taboo about it. They don't even want you to know. It's their business, and they don't want you to know about their children. But we felt that we could do something positive with this, and that was, we were out to do something positive, and I feel like we accomplished that, which is awesome.
Well, you did. You absolutely did. It comes across genuine, and the song is a banger. So the whole thing is,
Thank you so
it's a
much,
great
dude.
way to end it off. So, and going back
Thank
to
you.
the set, that should be in your set every single time moving forward. 'Cause that's a big one. That's a good one. So, guess kind of end off with a couple questions here, and then we'll end off with a cool, quick questions, and you give me your first thought when I tell you. But
Sure.
how do you balance with this now? Because things are different. How do you balance your career, your family, and the band?
It's challenging. It really is. I am very fortunate that I'm going on my 8th year to be a remote employee for the company I work for. So I am full-time remote. I work from home. I am an internal recruiter, like talent acquisition director, I guess you could call me, for a private company in New Jersey. So I am very fortunate to work for a very, very good employer that embraces work-life balance. Very rare that you hear that, but my employer embraces work-life balance. It's a beautiful thing. So that, for me, being able, if I didn't have a job where if I worked in an office 5 days a week, it'd be very tough, Chris. But like, I do have the luxury to work from my home, and it's been that way for a while, and that's really made me, given me more of balance in my personal life and my things that I like to do personally. So by having this extra time, I can have time for the things that I love, like Shutdown. Outside of, taking the kids to softball games and baseball games and coaching little league, I can do these things that I love and have the time to do it. And all of that is important for anybody's, personal mental health. You have to make time for the things you like to do,
Sure.
especially when you're a man with a family and responsibilities and a job, and your family depends on you. It's really important, and I tell people our age this, like, to make time for the things you love, not to overindulge and put that ahead of your priorities, but to make time for the things you love in a way that it'll bring out the best part of you. And I feel like that's what hardcore does for me. That's what Shutdown does for me. My wife sees it, my kids see it. If I didn't have this band and this music, I don't know what kind of person I'd be. I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. And having the band definitely is something that's helpful. There's something that's just the excitement of knowing you have a show coming up. We're going to get into the things that you have coming up in a little bit. It's
Yeah.
really, it's important. It's important to see that. And it's cool that your kids are seeing dad go through play shows and write albums and have them on an album. I mean, on an EP, it's cool.
It's all an experience, So it's like I'm happy that they're involved in it. They can see now, they're older, so they can see, like, they've always known about the band, of course. My wife, you see behind me, like, my wife has the pictures in frames around
Yeah,
my house, and
it's awesome.
the posters and the Australia tour. But like she puts her personal favorites around the house. But like basically, they're all coming home now, so I'm gonna transition upstairs. But it's one of those. It's okay. One of those things with me is just that I'm happy that now they're supportive in a way where I can do the things that I want to do. So it's a thing for me where I can go to Europe for a week. I can take off from work. I can go do a week on the East Coast or a week on the West Coast. And I know that, my family's supporting me. And
It's
that's
awesome.
super important because I don't think I could do it if they didn't. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You need that. And that's great. So one last thing before we get wrap things up here, but if you could go back in time and speak to yourself at, we were talking about your 16, 17-year-old self, what advice would you give? It could be musically, personally.
Yeah. I would certainly give myself financial advice because I didn't really have any financial sense back then. And I say that like in a funny way because like, I was like, if I had $10, I'd spend $10. I don't think I saved a penny. So I'd probably go back and tell myself like, hey man, just put $5 aside every week. Like it'll be worth it when when you're in your 40s.
So true.
Um, Musically, I have no regrets, man. Like I think this. I was a really lucky person to be so young and involved in hardcore and meet the friends I've made and be a part of this special scene where I grew up in it, man. Like I'm gonna be 46 this year. I've been a part of the scene since I was 13 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know anything else to talk about my life, 33 years. So it's very, very special and near and dear to me. And my kids know how much it means to me. But then when they see the friends that I have and, the embraces that we give each other and they look at me and they're like, wow, look at these people. Like, these are really your family. And I said, absolutely right. Like, these people are my family. And it's like, even you, Chris, we've known each other 30 years, dude.
Long time, man.
So there's very few genres of music that people are going to be doing podcasts and going, remember 30 years ago when we hung out outside the show? And here we are 30 years later. That is the special part of hardcore. Like this
Crazy.
shit is a lifetime commitment. And it's not because you're forced to commit to it for life. It's because you truly love the music. You know what I mean? So going back to my 17-year-old self, it would really I would tell myself to stay on the road because I would have never stopped touring at 21. I love traveling. I love meeting kids on the road. I love playing hardcore. I love just doing it all. Like it's all part of like this big community to me and a life experience, whether, you're going to play a different country or a different city or
Right.
meeting new kids and just meeting these kids, but you all have the same interests. It's like, wait, you like Agnostic Front too? Wait, you like Madball Set It Off too? Like, holy shit. Like, damn. And then next thing you know, by the end of the night, you can know kids for like 2 hours in hardcore and feel like they're your best friend by the end of the night because of all the similarities.
It's true. That's true. No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Quick before future plans. Like, what do for you guys? Tours coming up. Obviously not a 3-month tour, but tours coming up, and end off with, where do you see Shutdown in 5 years? Another EP, an LP. So kind of a 3-4 prong
Yeah.
question there.
So tour wise, we have a lot planned this year. I'm firming everything up now, but our next show right now is Saturday, March 22nd. That's at Brooklyn Monarch. We're playing with Fishbone and Scream and Aki and so many cool bands. Lamakia, John Lamakia from Canderia's band. It's really cool, diverse lineup put together. It's called Rai Fest. Ryan is a really good friend of mine. He played in the band Home 33 back in the 90s, and Aki is his band now. It's his birthday. It's also Steve and Dion's birthday within that same week. So we're basically turning that show into our own personal record release party. So anyone in New York, Long Island, the tri-state area, come to that show and support Shutdown. Like that's our record release show for this EP. That's our homecoming show because it's in Brooklyn. The next day we're playing in Providence, Rhode Island at a club called Alchemy. Good friend of mine, Tom, is putting on that show. I believe Burning Lord and Hard Target are on that show, two really good newer bands. And then working on so much. I'm actually, after I finish this podcast, I have a call with a good friend of mine in California, and we're finalizing tour plans for April. So we're going to be in California April 16th to April 20th. That's going to get announced in a few weeks. And we're going to Europe in August, playing a number of festivals, Brack Rock in Belgium. They haven't announced it yet, but they will, I think, this week. Really cool festival. We're also playing Punk Rock Rebellion in Liverpool, UK. So we're going to be doing about 10 to 12 shows in August in Europe. We're going to South America in June and July. So we're going to go to Colombia. We're doing a festival in Medellin in June. And then in the fall, we're going back to Europe. And I can't really announce the festival we're playing, but if people in the hardcore scene know the big festival that happens in the fall in Europe, yeah, I can kind of wink at them through this podcast and say that I'll see them in the fall. So Europeans should see us twice this year. South America, Colombia, we're really excited to go to Santiago, Chile. We're working the plans on that out now. That's a place that we've never played and we've been trying to get to for many, many, many years. So that's super exciting. And Mexico, we're talking about going back to Mexico. We went to Mexico City and played with the Gorilla Biscuits a few years ago, and it absolutely blew our mind. Kids were singing the words. It blew my mind. Never thought of Mexico City as a place that we were going to play where kids knew Shutdown, but it was unbelievable. So we're talking about going back to Mexico. We really just want to travel as much as we can this year to promote the EP. I just spent an hour on the phone at 3:00 with a Midwest promoter. We have a band in the Midwest and we're trying to like team up with them and do some Midwest dates. So we're looking at a weekend in Texas this year. We're looking at Denver, Boise, and Salt Lake City another weekend. And then we're doing another weekend, Detroit, Chicago, and Cleveland. I'm working on all this stuff as we speak, Chris. It sounds like a lot. It is a lot.
It's a lot.
So,
it's a lot. And it is.
I'm doing it all on my own. So
yeah, like it could be like good stress though, right? Like fun stress.
It is. No, it is. It is.
I know
I'm
you're
thankful for all of it.
You book everything, right? You book.
I do.
United States.
I work with Steve and then I should say we also got an offer to go to Canada today. So we're going to go do a festival in Canada. So awesome. There's so much in the works. It's going to come to, we'll post it as it gets firmed up. But our idea for this year with the new EP is to just go back to as many places as we can within reason. Hope people like it and just play for old and try to gain some new fans too. I think there's so many people that got into hardcore after 2001, which is when we stopped touring. And between 2002, call it, and 2012, and really just had no idea who we were. So I'm really trying to, hopefully those people kind of go back into the, the history books and try to find the old Shutdown, but also listen to the new stuff. And maybe they didn't like the older Shutdown. Maybe this is the stuff that they're into. So we just want to play shows, man. We're happy to be doing what we love, and traveling is something we always love doing. So the four of us to be able to do this year, we kind of made a commitment. Our families are on board for us to be able to take this new record to as many places as we can within reason. So yeah, we're excited. It's going to be a busy year for us for sure.
Sounds super fun, man. It's going to be awesome. So
yeah.
How we're going to end off here quickly is I have something here. It's just, I'll ask either a question or
I'll ask,
or either two things and you pick which one. So it's kind of rapid fire, kind of quick here. So favorite place to play. And I guess that means a state.
Favorite state to play, New York.
New York. What do you miss most about living in New York?
Everything bagels, bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches. But even though I don't eat bacon anymore, bacon, egg, and cheese, everything bagel sandwiches.
Okay, so old New York clubs here. Wetlands or Coney Island High?
Wetlands.
I agree. Old Long Island places to play here. PWAC or Deja One?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I love the PWAC, but I'm going to go new school here. I'm going to take Deja One.
Mm-hmm. All right. So this might be hard. All-time favorite Long Island show?
Oof. Non-shutdown or shutdown?
Shutdown. Sorry. Shutdown show.
Oh, there were some really good ones. Oh man. Long Island treated us like a second home back then, as you know. I'm going to say the first PWAC show we played off the Striving for Togetherness EP Turning the Tide just came out, maybe 2, 3 months. I met Christian, I met Michelle. I had known them through CBs and Tom Corrigan, and they offered us to come play the PWAC. We came out. I want to say No Redeeming played the show. It was a pretty diverse bill. I want to say No Motive played No Motive, or one of those bands played the show. I had already known Daryl from Glassjaw from going to shows, like that whole crew. Like, it's amazing the people that you know and the people that you've known for years. But we played that show, and it was the first show where, like, man, like, we had like pile-ons and sing-alongs, and people were singing songs off the EP, and people were singing songs off the Decide demo, and it blew my mind. Probably the first great show we ever had, so to speak. That was probably my favorite Long Island show. There was another one at Deja One that we played. I think you guys played it, actually. It was you guys, Kill Your Idols, Shutdown, maybe Ensign. I'd have to pull up the flyer.
Okay, yeah,
And it was just like Deja One shows.
Yeah.
The show was packed, front to back. Every kid was singing the words. I miss those old Long Island shows, Chris. Like, they were some of my favorite shows. Like, and the cool thing for me, living in Brooklyn, it was like 20-minute drive for me from my house. So it was like, I'd get on the Bell Parkway, drive to Mineola, and it was like a 30-minute drive, and I was at every Deja One show. Tom Sheehan and I used to go together, and Tom would call me and he'd be like, dude, Silent Majority is playing tonight. And I would go pick Tom up, and we'd drive. I was 17 with my license. Tom was 20. He didn't drive. And we'd drive to the fucking PWAC, and we'd go see Silent Majority.
Yeah.
And those memories will last a lifetime. I love that place. I'm so happy to call so many people friends that I met at the PWAC. Like, to this day, I probably have 50 friends that I still talk to on a semi-regular basis that still know me. We're friends on Facebook from the PWAC, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, Scratch the Surface or Built to Last?
Ooh, those are my two favorite Sick of It All records, but Scratch the Surface all day.
Yeah, Scratch the Surface. That's the one. That one is that was like the first hardcore like vinyl I remember buying. And I was like, yeah, that album's a classic. So this is tough. So these are two Brooklyn classics here: River Runs Red or Urban Discipline.
That's a really tough question. I love both those albums, but I have to go with Urban Discipline.
Urban Discipline. Okay. Set It Off or Demonstrating My Style?
Oh man, these questions are crazy. Set It Off.
Okay. Few and Far Between or Against All Odds? you pick your own one here.
Few and Far Between all day. Nah.
I know we love Blink. I love Blink 182. I know you do as well. Enema of the State or Take Your Pants Off and Jacket? Enema, or it's a weird thing to ask somebody. Enema or Take Your Pants Off?
No. No, I love Blink 182. Enema is always going to be like a personal favorite. Dude Ranch is my actual favorite Blink album, but Enema is
awesome. And they don't play anything off of it live. It drives me nuts. I love that.
I know. I took my daughter to see them. My daughter Harley loves Blink, and a very good, when Turnstile did the tour last year, a very, very, very good friend of mine in the hardcore scene from the CB's days. I don't want to like put him on blast because he doesn't like when I do that, but he knew that my daughter loved Blink, and he called me like a week before that show in the arena here, and he goes, hey, check your email. And I checked my email, and he got us like tickets, like VIP tickets. And I took my daughter, and it was really funny story. We got to the ticket window. It was sold out. We got to the ticket window, and the lady says, oh, here's your ID. And she gives me the envelope, and there's one ticket in there. And now it's me, my daughter, and my wife. And I look at the lady, and I'm like, of course you don't want to bite the hand that feeds, right? And I'm like, it's like, I don't want to call my friend at this point. I'm like, he did more than enough. What do I do? So I go to the lady. I said, I'm positive there's supposed to be 3, and the lady gets on her walkie-talkie, and she says, give me 5 minutes. And we're waiting there. And while I'm waiting, I see Hoya go up to the ticket window, and Hoya's there getting his ticket. Yeah, it was really funny. So Hoya's there, and Hoya gets his tickets, and Hoya goes in. He's like, oh, you okay? And I'm like, I'll be good. Like, we're just waiting. And about 10 minutes go by, and the lady comes out, and she's like, I have good news and I have better news. And we're like, what? She's like, we messed up. It's us. It's our fault. We were supposed to put 3 tickets in. We only have 1. But here's some all-access wristbands for the floor. And, here, your daughter's going to have the time of her life now. So we went to Blink, and my daughter was like front of barricade for Blink, singing like every song.
That's amazing.
And then I guess because like, someone in the crew knew, like, we were on the side, we actually had tickets to sit. We were sitting with like Turnstile's family. It turned out we were like with their like relatives. It was really funny because we didn't know them. And then after the show, somebody walks up to my daughter and they give her Blink's like the pick, like Mark's
Oh,
pick from the
she must
show,
have
you know?
been. Yeah.
And oh, she was in and then they gave her like this little alien that was from the stage, like this little
Cool.
alien doll. And she was like, I mean, I have videos of it. It was like the greatest time. I fucking love Blink. They put on the best show last year.
I think the
First
new
time I
album's
ever
great.
saw
I mean,
them.
it's not new anymore, but
Ooh.
the last album they put out, I thought was really good.
First time I ever saw them, and they were awesome. And I just want to give props to Turnstile because that was the first time I saw Turnstile live in Florida. Believe it or not, they fucking crushed it in an arena, dude. Like they crushed it,
They
and
were good. I
I'm
saw
I'm
them at
just so into
UBS
that band.
here. They were really good.
They were really good. They really brought the energy, and it was like I was so impressed with them. And my daughter loved them. They were like she was a fan right after that show.
Yeah.
She's like, these guys are great.
Cool.
So shout out to Turnstile for really taking that to another level on that tour.
Yeah. A couple more, and then we're almost done here. Band that you never had a chance to play with that you always wanted to, and it doesn't have to be hardcore.
Bad Religion,
Hmm. That's a good
probably
choice.
Bad Religion. Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite album of all time.
Favorite album of all time, man. Oh, that's a really tough one. I'm a hardcore kid at heart. I've said this on other podcasts. I have to stay true to it. Start Today, Gorilla Biscuits, my favorite album of all time.
That's an amazing album. They were great by the. I think I saw them at AMH over the summer last summer. They were great. They were incredible.
Yeah,
They sounded great.
they still got it. They still got
They
it. They
do.
still sound good. I just, yeah.
They do. So listen, thanks, Mark, for being part of the first podcast here. How quickly can people connect with you in the band if they need to?
Yeah, yeah. Easy. First of all, thank you, Chris, dude. We've known each other so long, and like for me to be your first guest, I'm honored. I know this podcast is gonna take off, and you probably
Thank
have a
you.
lot cooler people to speak to than me. So I'm
Nice.
honored that you chose me to speak to first. I know you're just helping an old friend because the old friend's got a new release out. So, dude, thank you so much. I'm
Of
more than
course, man.
appreciative for you to do this. I know our bands are gonna do stuff together because you're writing new music too. So that's number one. For me, I'm very, very easy to get a hold of online. I talk to everybody. I love talking about this music. I love chatting, making new friends. But I'm on social media. You can find us at Shutdown NYHC. That's on Instagram, Shutdown on Facebook, or you can just find me, Mark Shutdown on Instagram, and any which way, shoot me a message. Let me know what you think of the new record. Come to a show, tap me on the shoulder, let me know that you heard this podcast. I mean, it's all about this community is all about making friends and just being cool to one another.
Mhm. Absolutely, man. Stay on. We'll wrap up a little bit after this. I just want to sign us
Yeah,
off here. Thank you for checking out our first
no
episode
problem.
of the What Lies Ahead podcast, which is available on all streaming platforms. For more information on future episodes, you can go to our Instagram account and follow us at What Lies Ahead _podcast and on Facebook by searching What Lies Ahead podcast. See you all on the next episode.